In 1953, Alfa Romeo unveiled a car so wild that people honestly thought it had no headlights, and some swore it was the first Batmobile. One-off, hand-built and capable of slicing through the air with a drag coefficient better than many modern cars, this was no ordinary Alfa. This was the B.A.T. 5, a masterpiece with fins taller than my uncle's hair in the 1980s and a body that made even jet engineers jealous. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever wondered what would happen if a bat, a jet fighter, and a Baroque sculpture had a baby, congratulations, your oddly specific fantasy exists. It's called the 1953 Alfa Romeo B.A.T. 5, and it looks like it was designed by Salvador Dali on amphetamines. This thing didn't roll off an assembly line. It descended from the heavens on dramatically cantilevered tail fins while whispering aerodynamics in Italian. And of course, a heartfelt grazie to all the fine folks who support this channel. Thanks to you, I don't have to moonlight as a tour guide at vintage car auctions just to fund my espresso habit. You keep the wheels turning, the research flowing, and let me spend my days investigating important questions, like whether 1950s car designers used more nicotine or chrome in their creative process. Now, let's dive into the fantastic fever dream that was the birth of the B.A.T. 5. And no, despite what some internet experts claim, it was not made by a secret cabal of aerodynamic druids worshipping drag coefficients under a full moon. We're in post-war Italy. The country's rebuilding. Carrozzeria Bertone is searching for relevance beyond one-off commissions for aristocrats with cigars longer than their driving experience. Enter Nuccio Bertone, head honcho, dreamer, and visionary, and his newly hired designer, Franco Scaglione. Scaglione, a former aeronautical engineer turned stylist, didn't design cars. He sculpted airflow. He didn't sketch body lines. He channeled them from Newton and Da Vinci. Alfa Romeo, meanwhile, had shifted gears, literally and figuratively, from their racing heyday into road cars. They wanted to show the world they could lead in design and technology. So in late 1952, Bertone and Alfa shook hands, exchanged knowing nods, and decided to build something that looked like it came from 2052. The result? Berliner Aerodynamica Technica 5 B.A.T. 5 for short. Built on the short wheelbase Alfa 1900C platform, this thing wasn't for sale. It was for spectacle. Just one was made, entirely by hand. And when it debuted at the 1953 Turin Motor Show, people stared like it had just landed from another galaxy. Even Alfa's own management blinked a few times and muttered, "Che diavolo è questo?" The target wasn't everyday drivers. The audience was the global car industry, design critics, and whoever could still afford a linen suit and an espresso habit in 1953. This wasn't meant for dealership windows. This was a manifesto written in steel and speed. Now let's talk nuts and bolts. And I do mean nuts, because this car is technically brilliant in ways that still make engineers blink. Underneath the sculpture sat Alfa's 2.0-litre, 1,970cc Tipo 1308 DOHC 4 breathing through twin Solex carburetors, good for roughly 115 horsepower. That might not sound like much now, but back in 1953, that was enough to make even the most stoic engineer clutch their drafting pencil. Thanks to smart tuning and twin Solex 40 PI carburetors, the hood stayed low and sleek, no bulbous bulges here. The whole idea was to keep the airflow clean. Even the air itself was probably impressed. Power went to the rear wheels via a 4-speed, manual. The layout was standard front engine, rear drive, but the B.A.T. 5 wasn't about being conventional. Its low teardrop silhouette hugged the Alfa 1900C's 2.5-meter, 98.4 inches, wheelbase like a racing glove. Suspension was independent up front with double wishbones and a live axle with radius arms in the back, all springing on coils with telescopic dampers. Brakes were 4-wheel drums, which was standard for the era. The wheels were hidden behind sleek fender skirts front and because turbulence was the enemy, and this was a war against drag. That said, front wheels being shrouded meant the turning radius was, let's call it, optimistic. It was a car that looked best when going straight, quickly and in style. Parking? That was someone else's problem. Later, B8 models eased up on the wheel skirts to solve this issue, but the B.A.T. 5 was all about that uninterrupted airflow. The car wore a subtle gunmetal grey with red grille veins and a matching red interior. While American concepts of the era screamed in chrome and pastel, the B8 whispered in Italian. You may applaud now. Compared to contemporaries like GM's Firebird XP21 or Chrysler's Gia-bodied concepts, the B.A.T. 5 looked like it came from a different dimension, one where car designers moonlighted as opera set painters and physicists. In America, the design wave led to tail fins by the bushel, but while GM stuck fins on the back for flair, Scaglione used them as air management devices. One magazine wrote that the B.A.T. didn't look like a car. It looked like a philosophy exam in metal. What set B.A.T. 5 apart wasn't just the design, it was that it worked. While others built rolling sculptures, this was an actual functioning roadworthy car. It had run nearly 7,000 miles by the end of the 1950s. Imagine cruising through suburban 1950s America in this thing. Kids would have screamed. Politicians would have passed new zoning laws. Back in October 1953, Bertone sold the one and only B.A.T. 5 to American importer Stanley Wacky Arnold for $7,650. That's not peanuts, that's luxury yacht territory in 1953. In today's money, that's about $90,000. Give or take a Vespa or two. Not bad for a car that couldn't fit in most garages and looked like it should be orbiting Jupiter. In 1954, Arnold even tried to sell it at the New York Motor Show for $25,000. That's the price of 5 Cadillacs. There were no takers. For the next few decades, the B.A.T. 5 vanished from the spotlight, only to be discovered years later hanging from the rafters of a workshop in Indiana. Yes, literally hanging from the ceiling like a bat in a cave. You can't make this stuff up. It was eventually rescued, restored in the late 1980s, and made its comeback debut at Pebble Beach in 1988, winning hearts and trophies alike. Then came the moment that broke 1,000 auction paddles. In 2020, all 3 B.A.T. cars, 5, 7, and 9, were auctioned off as a set by RM Sotheby's. The hammer dropped at a cool $14.84 million. That's nearly $5 million per car. Not bad for something that once dangled above a tire balancer in South Bend, Indiana. So let's raise a metaphorical glass to the mad, beautiful aerodynamic glory that is the B.A.T. 5. It was never meant to sell. It was meant to inspire. And it still does. If this story tickled your brain or made you question why your daily driver doesn't have dorsal fins, smash that subscribe button like it owes you lira. And remember, next time someone tells you a car can't be art, show them the B.A.T. 5 and politely ask them to leave your garage.